the family that lived with a corpse for 10 years. The Ramirez house on Hemlock Lane had always been the quiet one. Not eerily so, just still. Curtains always drawn, lawn modestly kept, mailbox never overflowing, and no loud arguments or neighborhood cookouts. The kind of quiet that made it easy to overlook. The kind of quiet that, in retrospect, was too perfect. Luciana Ramirez, a mother in her late 50s, lived there with her 2 adult children, Mateo and Clara. Neighbors assumed the father had passed away long ago. No one asked questions. The Ramirez family kept to themselves, polite but distant. But inside that house, beyond the dusty windows and drawn curtains, a secret festered like rot beneath floorboards. One they had lived with for 10 years. It was a routine wellness check that began to unravel it all. A social worker named Ellie Tran had been assigned a backlog of unresolved disability claims. One belonged to Hector Ramirez, Luciana's husband, listed as homebound due to degenerative illness. Yet no one had seen him in a decade. No hospital visits. No updated medical files. But the checks kept coming. Ellie knocked on the door one rainy Thursday. Luciana answered with her usual soft smile. "Oh, Hector's sleeping," she said. "It's a bad day for his back." But Ellie, trained to spot evasiveness, noticed something. Mateo shifted nervously behind the door. Clara never made eye contact. And the smell, faint but unmistakable, the sour tinge of mildew, bleach, and something else. She thanked them and left. But her instinct screamed. 3 days later, police arrived with a warrant. The officers walked down a narrow hallway with floral wallpaper peeling at the corners. Family photos lined the walls, all dated, yellowing, and none more recent than 2012. A crucifix hung crooked above a door. Luciana tried to stop them. "He doesn't like visitors," she whispered, shaking. They opened the door anyway. The room was dark and humid. Heavy curtains blocked out the sunlight, and the air was thick with a smell that clawed at the throat. In the far corner sat a hospital bed. Rusted wheels, matted bedding, and beneath it all, a shape, curled in a blanket, sunk into the mattress like a fossil, was Hector Ramirez, or what remained of him, perfectly preserved. Forensics confirmed what was impossible to comprehend. Hector had died almost exactly 10 years earlier. Heart failure, no sign of foul play, and yet his body had been kept, maintained, preserved using rudimentary embalming techniques, bleach, plastic sheeting, dehumidifiers. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The checks sent to his name, cashed. The taxes, filed. The family, unflinching. When asked why they hadn't reported his death, Luciana broke down. Her voice shook as she whispered, "He never left. He promised he never would. And we needed him. More than you'll ever know." Slowly, the truth came out. Not all at once, but in fragments like puzzle pieces dredged from deep water. After Hector's death, Luciana had panicked. They had no savings, no extended family. Clara, 19 at the time, had just started college. Mateo had autism and relied on his father for stability. Reporting the death would mean losing the disability checks, their only income. But it was more than money. In their fractured grief, they began treating Hector's room like a shrine. They spoke to him, cleaned him, kept him in his hospital bed as if he were just sleeping. What began as desperation became delusion. Neighbors remembered hearing the vacuum late at night, seeing Luciana wash sheets in the yard by hand. One even recalled Mateo talking to Papa through the closed bedroom door. No one ever looked closer. When the story broke, it was everywhere. Family found living with corpse for a decade. Fraud or mental illness. The Ramirez family scandal. Twisted love or criminal neglect? News crews swarmed the neighborhood. Commentators speculated endlessly. Was it financial fraud? Psychological breakdown? Cult behavior? The family, once invisible, became infamous overnight. Luciana was charged with fraud and improper disposal of a body. But psychiatrists argued for diminished responsibility. Mateo and Clara were taken into protective care. Online, The world was split. Some cried monsters. Others saw tragedy. But there was one voice that stood out. During a search of the house, police found an old box tucked in the back of Hector's closet. Inside, love letters, childhood drawings, journals, and one envelope labeled, "For when I'm gone." The letter was dated 2 weeks before his death. In it, Hector wrote about the fear of leaving his family behind, about how they wouldn't make it without him, about how Mateo needed structure and Clara needed college, about how Luciana had given up everything. He ended the letter with a haunting line, "If you must keep me here a little longer, I forgive you." A year later, Luciana avoided jail time, court-mandated therapy, community service. Clara dropped out of school but returned after legal aid intervened. Mateo was placed in a supported living program and began painting, often pictures of a man sitting peacefully in a chair. Then, one day, Clara visited the hospital where she had volunteered before everything fell apart. A nurse pulled her aside. "We never told you," she said. "Your father, before he died, he made us promise something." Clara froze. "He left a donation in your name, for your tuition. It was waiting here all along." The family had suffered, fallen apart, hidden a corpse. But somehow Hector had been trying to protect them even in death. Not with his body, but with a future he'd prepared quietly, lovingly. They just never looked in the right place. A final shot pans through the now empty Ramirez house. The room once filled with shadows now bathed in sunlight. The bed stripped, the curtains drawn back. A single framed photo sits on the windowsill. A young family, smiling, unaware of the darkness to come. Then fade to black. Sometimes grief doesn't bury the dead. It brings them home.